Hey everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. Hope you're all doing very well today. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the life and times of Bill Atwood. And you're probably thinking, who's Bill Atwood? I've never heard of him before. Well, he's the last card in the 1940 play ball set. I'll show you the back of it just in case you haven't seen it. Looks something like this. Unfortunately, my camera does not like to pick up. There we go. So yes, you can see that. And you can also see in the bottom there is an advertisement for Superman chewing gum cards. And that's really interesting. Superman cards from 1940 from Gum Inc. are really, really popular. I don't actually own any in my collection. Someday I will. And I've got actually a lone example of a 1940 Lone Ranger card. And I hope to get a few more of those in my collection too, because the artwork on both of these are absolutely fantastic. So you're probably wondering why Bill Atwood would be the last card in the set. Usually the first and last cards are reserved for pretty special players. And I'll get into his story right after I talk a little bit about this particular card set. This is not my favorite card set in the entire world. I only have 4 copies in this set. I've never been a fan. Usually I think because it is the sepia tone of the layout here that I just don't like. And I think that sepia tone has really done a lot of damage over the decades with these cards. It may have been cool when it was coming out of a pack, but you're talking like 80 plus years later, and there's a lot of toning with this particular set, which you don't really find in a lot of other cards. A lot more toning, I should say, because there is some in the 1939, but it's on the backs, and I don't have any 39s here, but I do have 41, and as you can see, so this is uh, Dom DiMaggio, and Dom should be in the Hall of Fame, but he's not, and I have a little tear coming down my eye for that one. But anyway, so Dom DiMaggio here, it is his rookie, he's got 2 of them. You can see on the back here, there's a lot of toning that you're going to see on the 1941s especially, and it's usually around the corners and the sides. So that's kind of like universal, I think, but it gets even worse with the 1940 because of the sepia tone. This one's okay, but usually the last and the first cards in the set, most sets are usually found in like dog beat condition, is absolute garbage. And this one's actually crease free, which I'm very surprised. I was surprised I actually found this card. I've been looking for this for a very long time, and what I used to do as a kid was I used to go through Beckett magazine and I used to study the checklists of the certain sets. Now this card in the set was not in Beckett, but they were in Sport Americana and they were in a few other magazines. So I used to go through the checklists, and I always wondered who Bill Atwood was. I was like, well, if he's the last card in the set, he must be a pretty important player to be added as a last card or even in the set. There are players in these play ball sets that are actually pretty important. I know the 1939 play ball set, the last card is Whitey Moore, and I actually have a video on Whitey Moore that you guys can check out because he is the last card in the 39 set. That card was actually extremely difficult for me to acquire. I spent years and years trying to find one, and when I did, it was beat. I don't really care though because it's about acquiring the card, and actually it's quite nice. In fact, even though there is some damage to it. This card does not have much damage, but again, the centering is also really bad too on a lot of these cards. Again, I'm not a big fan of the 1940 play ball. I guess there's something kind of interesting going on with this set as well, and with the 1939. So I've never officially heard but it looked like from the very start that Warren Bowman was trying to have a colorized set. Again, going back to 1939. I'm not entirely sure if it was a legitimate from, say, George Mall or whoever the printing company was, press, and not George Mall. He was the advertising agency that did the artwork and all that, but I don't think he did the printing of any of these cards. It may be Zabel Brothers, but I'm not entirely sure. We do know for a fact that the printing of the 1940 play ball is different from the 1941, and then Bowman actually well, and then Gum Inc. They changed their name to Bowman in 1944. It's still the same company, just a different name. I think they changed their name twice, once in 44. They actually closed their doors in 1943, and we're not entirely sure why that was. And then 1944, they opened their doors again, and they changed their name to Bowman Gum Inc. So from Gum Inc. to Bowman Gum Inc. And they actually changed their name a couple of times. In fact, I think like 4 or 5 times from like 1927 to 1953. There's that, and there's still a little bit of unanswered questions, if you will, about Gum Inc. and Warren Bowman, especially in 1943. What was he doing? We have no idea. The company was closed in 1943, and we don't know. We don't have all the information, and it could be that he was under a lawsuit again, or that he couldn't get gum chewing gum base in 1943. But again, we don't have any documentation that actually proves that, so it's still an unanswered question. And so, 1940 though, Bill Atwood, this is his last year in the majors. He actually had a pretty long career in baseball from 1931 to 1942, and then again in 1946 through 1948. And you're going to see in some of these articles, I thought one was pretty fun that I'm going to share with you, but you're going to see what kind of ball player he is, what kind of person he is, and what happens throughout his life. I think it's really interesting. We sometimes forget that these guys are just your average everyday people, and they could be living right next door to you. In fact, in my case, I actually did have a ball player live, well, not next door, but right down the street, and that was Lenny Marullo from the 1945 Chicago Cubs. So I did get to talk to Lenny on several occasions, meet him, and Lenny was also the roommate of Phil Cavaretta as well on the road. So he had some really great stories to tell, and you're going to see what happens to Bill Atwood throughout his career. I thought it was really interesting, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side and talk about this a little bit more. This is from the Philadelphia Inquirer, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, February 4th, 1938. Messages in midwinter from Phillies players. Members of the Phillies who will report at Biloxi this spring have written letters to Stan Baumgartner of the Inquirer's sports department telling him of their activities during the winter, their hopes for 1938, and intimate details of their lives. Below is a letter from Bill Atwood. Harold Kelleher will be heard from tomorrow, Dallas, Texas. Dear Stan, you will have to forgive me for the delay in answering your letter. I've been out of town for a couple of weeks and just got home a few days ago. I went on a deer hunt down close to Mexico, and the party got 7 deer, myself getting 2 of them, although I spent most of my time on the ranch riding and grading the white-faced cattle of which I am interested. I think that the change of training camps from Winter Haven to Biloxi should be just as suitable as possibly could be. Biloxi is a nice place with a swell climate. I am looking forward with eagerness to the time when we will all be together to start another spring training. I am in the best shape I could possibly be in after a winter of outdoor work, riding and walking numerous miles a day and playing golf. I weigh 185 and hope to have another good year like I did in 1936, although I don't consider 37 a bad one due to the three broken and split fingers and the 2 weeks in the hospital with that bad leg I had. If you remember, every time I was in there for a while without being hurt, my average would rise, and just before I hurt my leg, I was going right on to the 300 class when I fouled one on my shin off Melton, and that would be Cliff Melton. Stan, so much for that. I want to say something right from the heart now. Mr. and Mrs. Nugent are the greatest people I have played ball for. It is a pleasure to play and give your best to someone like them, and Jimmy Wilson is the best manager in baseball and a great fellow besides. They're tops with me. So Stan, with the best wishes for the remainder of the winter, hoping to see you soon in Biloxi. Sincerely, Bill Atwood. And Mr. and Mrs. Nugent, that would be the owners of the Phillies. This is from the Birmingham News, Birmingham, Alabama, April 8th, 1938. Dusting 'em Off by Zip Newman. Jimmy Wilson was having Scotty Holmes give the Phils the steam treatment and taking his share out of the vapors and sunlights. It was Jimmy's idea of a workout for the Phillies with Rickwood waterlogged. Rickwood Stadium's one of the oldest stadiums in America at this point. John Hornus Lobert and Jimmy Wilson were the first to show up in the BAC Solarium, two sturdily built lads, as Jack Meager would call them. "Where do you go for the steam heat?" asked Jimmy Wilson. The girl at the counter sent Jimmy and his smiling friend over to Scotty Holmes. "We want the works," said Lobert. "You shall get the works," said Scotty Holmes. Jimmy Wilson made for the steam room, and Lobert crawled into the tank with the bright lights inside. In no time they were running a high temperature. Bill Atwood, Wild Bill Hallahan, Claude Passau, and Ed Hauser came in. "Throw Bill Atwood on the scales," said Lobert. "I bet he is 40 pounds overweight," said Jimmy. A crowd gathered around the scales. "What's this, a public weighing of William Franklin Atwood?" asked Bill. "Your man weighs 196 pounds without an ounce of cotton on him," said Holmes. "The scales are no good," said Bill Atwood. "Get in shape, Atwood. You don't catch until you're below the 190 mark." It was Jimmy's turn in the cookery, and Bill Atwood came over and closed the doors on him. He seemed to take great delight in tying the towel around Jimmy's neck. "What you trying to do, choke the manager?" yelled Jimmy. "No, just want to be sure the manager is going to be in shape to share the catching," replied Bill, offering what appeared to be a half-baked apology for choking the manager. "I trained here with the Philadelphia Nationals in 1911," said Hans Lobert, "and this is my first trip back. I understand the Phillies trained here again in 1920. My, how the years do trot along." Jimmy Wilson and Ed Hauser, who got his freedom from the Cards chain gang, think the Chicks are going to have quite a ball club. Hauser had been in the Chicks camp for 4 days when Landis freed him. "I think the Chicks will be stronger than last year," said Ed. "Billy has a well-balanced club." "The Chicks impressed me as a good minor league club," said Jimmy Wilson. Claude Passau came through with the towel for drapes. "Here's a story for you," said Jimmy Wilson. "Passau joined the club today. We didn't get to see anything of Passau for all his Mississippi friends at the training camp." Hans Lobert was all ready for the lights. Here was a chance to find out if the Giants looked hot. "The Giants have another ball club," said Hans. "Give Bill Terry 2 more pitchers and he would breeze through. I haven't seen the Cubs, you know." What did Jimmy Wilson think of the Phillies? With the count 2-2, he called for a slow ball, a grounder to George Sherian. Sherian will make 'em all sit up and take notice, said Jimmy. He's a great player. Yes, yes, Chuck Klein looked set for another good year. Bill Hallahan had still something on the ball, and Atwood was still a hustling player. This is from the Detroit Free Press, August 22nd, 1938. Bartell fights as Giants lose. Phillies Bill Atwood tangles with Dick. New York, August 21st. The Phillies, who waited until yesterday to win their first game of the season at the Polo Grounds, made it two in a row today with an 8-3 victory over the Giants. They landed on Cliff Melton and two other pitchers for 15 hits, and after piling up 4 runs in the first inning, coasted in behind the effective 9-hit pitching of Max Butcher, who beat the Giants for the second time in 8 days. The game was featured by a fight between shortstop Dick Bartell of the Giants and catcher Bill Atwood of the Phillies. Atwood bumped into Bartell on the base paths in the seventh, and they squared off until umpire Beans Reardon broke it up. Pinky Whitney, with 3 hits, and Del Young with 2, each drove in 3 runs. This is from the Abilene Reporter News, Abilene, Texas, September 16th, 1993. Former pro baseball player Bill Atwood dies in accident. Bill Atwood, 81, who played professional baseball for 20 years, died Tuesday from injuries received in an automobile accident. He started his career as a catcher with the Dallas Steers, a minor league team of the Philadelphia Phillies organization. In 1934, he was promoted by the Phillies to the major leagues, where he had 220 hits and 112 runs batted in over 5 seasons. Atwood's career was hampered by a neck injury after 5 years in Philadelphia. He went back to the minor leagues, where he played for several years. His baseball career was briefly stopped when he joined the Army Corps of Engineers. During World War II, Mr. Atwood flew over the Himalaya Mountains in the China-India-Burma theater, carrying ammunition, gasoline, and other basic supplies for B-20 pilots. When the war ended, he returned to baseball, playing for the Hollywood Stars in the Pacific Coast League. He also played a role in the movie Pride of the Yankees, depicting the life of Lou Gehrig. He was featured on a Wheaties cereal box, 1-cent bubblegum card, and a 1993 baseball card. Services for Mr. Atwood will be at 2:30 p.m. today in the Colonial Hill Baptist Church, with the Reverend Miller Robinson officiating. Burial will be in the Hillside Memorial, directed by Bell Seipert Seal Funeral Home. Born in Rome, Georgia, he moved to Snyder in 1949 and owned Atwood Construction before his retirement. He was a member of the First Methodist Church. Survivors include his wife, Claudine Atwood of Snyder, one son, Billy Tim Atwood of Snyder, one daughter, Janice Mott of Jacksonville, and 4 grandchildren. Memorials may be made to the Clogdale Hospital Auxiliary in Snyder or the American Diabetes Association. Who didn't get into a fight with Dick Bartell, also known as Shortwave or Rowdy Richard? And there's a reason why they called him Rowdy Richard and Shortwave, because he had a short fuse with his teammates and opponents alike. And he's not unlike Ducky Medwick of the St. Louis Cardinals, who was universally disliked by both his teammates and opponents. Nobody liked that guy, and I think that Dick Bartell actually fits in this mold as well. But both these players are actually really good, and that's actually a side that you don't really hear about too often. Bill Atwood, he may not have been a household name, but somebody liked him. Somebody wanted him for the last card in the 1940 play ball set. I don't know who that is, but he must have made an impression on somebody at least. As I always say, every ball player, every person has a story to tell, And a lot of times we just hear the stories of, say, Mickey Mantle or Joe DiMaggio or Ted Williams, but we don't often get to hear the stories of your average, everyday lunch pail uh, baseball player. And a lot of these stories get kind of lost over time. And some of these guys, I'm sure they had some great experiences playing baseball, and it wasn't just maybe the baseball, like being on the field and making a great play, but maybe it was spending time with their friends or taking a train trip or maybe spending time in a hotel room and just the camaraderie of the team and the players. There are a lot of ball players who never make it out of the minor leagues, and he got to spend 5 years in the majors, and he may not have had a great career, but again, he made it, and he spent enough time there to, I'm sure, have a lot of great stories. And so this is one of the things that I wanted to kind of learn about when I heard the name Bill Atwood. I was like, who is this guy? I want to find out why he's on the 1940 play ball set. I want to know why he's the last card in the set. Obviously, he's got to be kind of memorable to somebody over at Bowman to actually be the last card in the set. So if you have any stories about trying to locate this particular card, let me know. And if you have any favorites in the 1940 play ball set, I'd love to know that too. I don't really have any favorites in this set because it's not my favorite set. But again, every player, every person has a story to tell, and I wanted to tell his story because I don't think anyone has, at least properly anyway. So again, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. As always, I appreciate it, and I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye.